All right, good evening everyone and welcome to the 17th of May meeting of Council. To start the official proceedings, I would like to acknowledge that we are meeting on Jara country, of which the members and elders of the Jara community and their forebears have been custodians for many centuries and have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region. Council meetings are audio and video recorded and are made available to the public via electronic media, including YouTube. Today we have present in the chamber Councillor Henderson, Councillor Driscoll, Councillor Gardner, Councillor Cordy. I am Deputy Mayor Anir, CEO Darren Fuzzo and Director Anir and Director Knight. Mayor Maltby is an apology for the night. He's still not feeling the best, and we have Councillor McClure joining us via the screen. Are there any declarations of interest and conflicts of interest? Item 4, confirmation of minutes. Councillor Driscoll, do I have a seconder? Councillor Cordy, all in favour? Passed. Item 5, acknowledgements, nil. Item 6, public question time. Would somebody like to move to suspend standing orders? Councillor Henderson?
Suspend standing orders.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cordy, all in favour? Carried. All right, public question time. So before we get started, I'm just going to read the basic outline of what constitutes a question. A question of council may be on any matter, except if it relates to a matter outside the duties, functions and powers of the council, is defamatory, indecent, abusive, offensive, irrelevant, trivial or objectionable in language or substance, is aimed at embarrassing a councillor or a member of council staff, relates to personnel matters, relates to the personal hardship of any resident or ratepayer, relates to industrial matters, relates to contractual matters, relates to legal advice, relates to a planning matter already listed on the council meeting agenda, relates to matters affecting the security of council property, or relates to any other matter which the council considers would prejudice the council or any person. So we have some questions here that were sent in. We will deal with those first. We have one here from Bill Wigglesworth. Christine? Sorry.
Mr. Wigglesworth, his question for Councillor is, an article in the 19th April Herald Sun stated that based on a per capita consideration, Mount Alexander Shire has the worst graffiti problem in country Victoria. Considering that the incidence of graffiti vandalism in Castlemaine are increasing, what positive new strategies can the council introduce to confront and eliminate this unsightly defacing of our community?
Director Anir?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Anir. I thank Mr. Wigglesworth for his concern related to the management of graffiti within our shire. Officers acknowledge the importance of managing graffiti and have taken actions and in the past and will do so to address the situation. Council is currently in discussions and cooperating with the local police force and community groups to undertake new and expanded actions to address the graffiti management within our shire. These actions will hopefully result in positive undertakings to address the issue that we face.
Thank you, Director, and thank you, Mr. Wigglesworth, for your question. We have another question, or actually a statement to be read out from Janet Daimlo. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, and it is a statement. I can't attend the meeting or would like my brief comments to be read at question time. I noticed that when I attended this particular council organised meeting, which covered a wide range of issues, about a third of people came into the chat room dealing with water. It may be of interest for you to know that I'm a member of the Australian Conservation Foundation, McNamara, Port Phillip Energy Climate Action Network and Beyond Gas Network. We're working hard in the inner south of Melbourne to encourage candidates in the upcoming federal election to think about a climate emergency. Here we have issues with renewable energy, tree canopy and inundation from rises in the sea level, and that's the statement.
Thank you for your statement. All right, we have a few people here in the chamber who would like to read their own statement. So first, Bronwyn Mashin.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, staff.
You know it's.
I'll start again. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, staff. The question I have is from me representing myself as somebody who's walked around Camp Reserve with my dog for 20 years, not the same dog, different dogs. So I congratulate the councillors on trying to make clear where dogs may be walked off lead. However, I'm still a bit confused and I'm seeking some clarity as I keep being attacked on the street by not dogs but people. The February meeting agenda and resolution of council, including passing of an order of council that requires dogs to be on leads on all roads in the area identified on maps for Castlemaine, Campbells Creek, Chewton and Malden. Further, the councillor's resolution made it clear that dogs were not allowed on playing services. My confusion is particularly in relation to the top point in the order of council requiring dogs to be on lead in all other parks and reserves between sunset and 6 a.m. and when the park maintenance is being performed. So I had assumed that I could walk my dog off lead around Camp Reserve in daylight hours, provided that there was no maintenance or event. So that's part of my question is, can I or can I not? And I was also confused when I looked up the website because Wesley Hill Reserve is in the website as being totally banned to dogs, whereas the resolution actually banned on the playing surfaces, not the whole reserve. So I don't know whether I'm allowed to take my dog on Wesley Hill Reserve at all, or off lead, on lead, as long as I'm off the playing surfaces. So can I have some clarity around that, please?
Director O'Neill.
Thank you, Robin, for your question. To help provide some clarity tonight, the intent of the order is for dogs to be on leads within the boundaries of the cities of the Shire as marked within the maps. Officers will review the text of the order to ensure that this is clear with regard to the points that you have raised related to dogs off playing surfaces on reserves between sunrise and sunset. We'll also seek to confirm the Wesley Hill Recreation, which is confirm that dogs are banned at all times on that reserve. Thank you for that, also for the proposal to make it more accessible for the order on the council website, and we will look to make that happen moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Bronwyn. Our next question is from Trace Fowler.
Can I just leave that one?
Is that all right? No, I was doing that feedback thing. Does it everywhere? Oh, okay. I just wish to acknowledge the Jara people and that they've been camping here for thousands of years, and that's what I'm here to talk about. I have camped on public land around here a lot of times, and I don't feel safe as a woman camping alone. Sometimes when I'm there, groups of people drinking show up. I also want it peaceful. I want to connect with nature and leave a light footprint. And the rule is that if I buy, inverted commas, for me it's inverted commas, a bit of the land, I have to camp less than 6 weeks or build on it. And I don't want to build, I just want to do what's been done for thousands of years and camp on the land. And so what I'm asking is about re-looking at that law. And I haven't got any straight answers on why that law is, apart from that, that's the law. I understand like toilet, issues. And I'm wondering if there could be a different law that if people like myself want to do that, then there's a way we have a permit to get a toilet somehow without having to build. I have a house in town, so I don't want one. Just want to go in the bush. That sort of thing.
Jeremiah.
Thank you, Tracy, for your question. Considering the specific details of your request, I suggest that we meet to discuss in detail and to go through. So I'd like to follow up with you to set a time to discuss this in detail. Michael and you. Thank you. I'll be in touch.
Thanks for your question, Trace. We have another question here from Dr. Jackson.
I'm not very good with this sort of thing. I would like to make a couple of comments regarding the two parking bays to the east of the pedestrian crossing in Mostyn Street. I was in Castlemaine on the 4th of May at about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and I just crossed the crossing going south and saw a large vehicle pull in and park in one of the two bays designated for small cars only. I said to the driver that these were parking bays expressly for small cars, but he replied, I parked here yesterday. And I said, well, yesterday was yesterday. And he got me funny. He said he was only going to be 2 minutes. Whether it was 2 minutes or not, I don't know. But this was precisely the sort of behaviour that I predicted was going to happen in the letter that I wrote to Midland Express. In that letter, I suggested that those two parking bays could be very useful for bicycle and or motorcycle parking. In fact, it could be used both quite simply by putting up those sort of horseshoe-shaped bike racks, I suppose you call them, perhaps two at each end of the two bays to provide bicycle parking and in the areas between those horseshoes to mark out motorcycle parking spots. This would serve, I think, a few purposes. Firstly, it would make pedestrians more easily seen by motorists and other road users, and thus safer. Secondly, it would get bicycles off the footpaths in front of the shops Thirdly, we'll get most of the motorcycles off the footpath along the south side of Mostyn Street. And fourthly, it will prevent selfish drivers of bigger vehicles putting pedestrians at risk as they cross the road. There are some small cars in length, but they're like vans. They're fairly high, and if they're parked there, it's very, very hard to see the pedestrian crossing, even though they fall into the category of small vehicles. It's very hard to see past them, the pedestrian crossing, and I think the situation as it stands still is potentially dangerous. So I'm suggesting I'd like council to think further about this and look at putting up those horseshoe-shaped bike racks, whatever, and motorcycle parking between them. Thank you.
Thank you for your suggestions, Dr. Jackson. Director O'Neill.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor O'Neill. Thank you, Dr. Jackson, for sharing your recent experience and also your suggestions for the two parking bays east of the pedestrian crossing on Mostyn Street. In reviewing the situation and the concern for safety of pedestrians using the crossing, officers did look into many different options. At the end of that review, we concluded that a trial of 2 small parking bays would be appropriate. In undertaking the trial, we set a period for 6 months, understanding that changes of such nature do take time and require also some education to go alongside the change, which responds to the interaction you had with the car owner on the day that you mentioned. So the council is undertaking awareness within the business community as well as within people as well as within people who are parking in those locations here locally. Residents of the community are able to provide feedback on the trial over the 6 month period through our Mount Shape and Alexandra website, which is seeking review. At the end of the trial period, council officers will review the experiences of the trial, not the 2 small car parking, so they inform future decisions, which may or may not continue with the 2 small car parks or seek alternative options. So we'll take on board your experiences and your comments today as part of the review. We appreciate residents like yourself understanding that the trial is in process and we'll be working back harder to inform those future decisions.
Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Director O'Neill. I just want to ask, in this trial period, in the trial period, will people park large vehicles and still receive a parking ticket?
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. I'm just waiting for the microphone. There's no official local law that will allow us to instigate a parking fine or a fine of any form. However, we will be creating awareness and requesting the individuals who use the car park in an inappropriate manner to not do something to the future. But as at the moment, our laws do not allow for the issuing of a fine in these locations.
So if the trial was a success, then we need to make an addendum to our local law.
We will be taking action upon that once that was the case, yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any further questions from people here tonight?
I did fill it for them. That way we'll be waiting with them. Basically, talk about maintenance issues, which is what I'm here to do. I've banged on about this since 2013.
Excuse me, could you just tell us your name, please?
Duncan Brown, Guildford.
Thank you.
I did fill it for them. Yeah, since 2013, various times I've read my ugly head and come in here and talk about shoulder grading and longitudinal drainage. Nothing gets done. This is maintenance. This is the basic core of what will help save our roads. There's 186 million roughly the road assets, your best asset, the largest asset we've got, and it's not being taken care of. Now I want to know why not. Because this is crucial as far as I'm concerned. Briefly, I spent 8 years with motor accidents board, the previous forerunner of the TAC. 9 years on the Newstead Shire, I spent 15 years assessing roads. Roadside slashing has created mulch, which is built up, so the water doesn't drain off the road the way it used to. Cars going on and off the road also contributes to the distension of the shoulders. Now, we need to put in some remedial longitudinal drainage. And the result of the water sitting on the edge of the seal, because it can't get off the seal, is letting the water get under the seal and into the road pavement. And the underlying road pavement then distends because of the water underneath it and it's being trafficked upon. And you end up with problems of the conformation of the road. Water sitting on sunken roads of the seal eventually ends up cracking in it because the water permeates the bitumen, and then you've got a wetter spot in that particular area. Maintenance just doesn't seem to happen. There was an attempt between the Friars Road, Friars Campbell's Creek Road and Friars Town. There's 3 times they've had a go at it. They've almost got it right. There was too much material put on it. The people that did it obviously weren't aware that water only flows downhill. Now the water sitting at the edge of the seal becomes a natural drainage point, and when the shoulders aren't formed properly, what happens is the water ends up sitting beside the seal in the higher point and ends up creating a drain because there is no enforced drainage for it with formation of shoulders and natural drainage. And you end up in a lot of cases with drop-off points. Some of them from the edge of the seal can be 200 mil. I took Dave Petrusma out for a walk, a drive around before he resigned. Unfortunately, he resigned, and he concurred with me that yes, it was a problem. And some of the things were sorted. There was on the Newstead Guildford Road, there was shoulders there with a drop off of more than 200 mil. These were filled with road base metal. And of course, it scattered as soon as it happened because they weren't as compacted as the soil on the other side.
If you could wrap up your question, please.
Well, I'm taking as long as it takes for you to do something about this.
We've allotted 3 minutes for each question and your 3 minutes are up. So could you wrap up your question, please?
Okay, when are you going to do something about the maintenance? The CEO is an engineer, I believe. I had a discussion with Phil Josophic and Tanya at one stage. And yes, things were going to be done and they weren't done when he left. I believe Tanya's gone as well. I'm just interested in the lack of maintenance which is going on because the average steel road has a lifespan, bitumen road has got a 15 to 18 year lifespan in this region. I know roads, and a lot of them, which haven't been touched for 30 years. So pre-amalgamation. Now, we are underfunding our roads. That is the basic problem.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown. Director O'Neill.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor O'Neill. Thank you, Mr. Brown, for sharing your knowledge and your experience of your time. I understand that Engineering Manager Paul Duce has been in contact with you recently.
Yes, he has.
And he's also acknowledged that your feedback and knowledge is valid and would like to take that forward. He's committed to follow up, to meet with you along with members of the works team who undertake the maintenance. And I understand that arrangement of that meeting time is in place and you'll be in contact with him to go forward. I do acknowledge that there has been turnover in the team. We will be looking to document and conversation and to take it forward so that it's on record for if there were any changes in the future, which I am hoping personally not to be the case, so that the team can move forward and address issues over.
Not
just
I've
acknowledge
been
your
doing this
points
since
about,
2013, and
I'd just like to confirm that while I understand that action hasn't been as fast as you would have liked, or all of us would have liked, we do acknowledge the valid points that you have made, and we would like to be able to draw on those further with you. And thank you for your patience in giving more time to council officers to take us through that. Appreciate it.
Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Councillor through there, and thank you for your comments. I just want to point out that I'm sorry if things aren't working out in the Guildford area, but I have been receiving very favourable comments and congratulations from people in the eastern part of the Shire on the excellent work being done on the drains along our roads. And I have to say that some really impressive work being done there. And so let's hope that it gradually flows west. Whereas recognising the current mortgage on, and it's never going to stay good, it has to keep being maintained. But there's been some particular attention paid to drainage and recognise how important it is for the maintenance of our roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Are there any further questions? Would someone like to resume standing orders?
I move that we resume standing orders.
Seconder? Councillor Driscoll, all in favour? All right, item 7, petitions and letters, nil. Item 8, committee reports, nil. Item 9.1, community, nil. Item 9.2.1, adoption of asset plan and asset management policy. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor. Very appropriate. Given the last question. So I will say the asset plan, asset management policy, the framework, asset management framework has been prepared in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020, the new Local Government Act. The framework incorporates a suite of strategic asset management documentation, including the asset management policy, the asset plan, and asset management plans infrastructure for roads, Part A, Part B, pathways, Part C, bridges, Part D, drainage. Also asset management plan for open spaces and asset management plan for buildings. The framework includes a vision to ensure infrastructure assets support services that are appropriate, accessible, responsive, timely and sustainable to the community in accordance with responsible asset management that will preserve the life of the asset and ensure that the community is receiving the best value for money from the asset. This report presents Mount Alexander Shire Council's draft asset plan and draft asset management policy. These documents provide direction to manage council asset portfolio to ensure service delivery needs of the community of Metro now and into the future. Public consultation has been completed with no changes recommended. These plans are now presented, seeking council's adoption in accordance with the Act. Thank you, Mayor. So I'll go on to move that Council A adopts the asset plan and the asset management policy and endorses the placement of the asset management plan and the asset management policy on the Mount Alexander Shire Council website for public access.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gardner. Any opposition? Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to your motion?
Very briefly, Deputy Mayor, just to say that this is a high-level document sitting over the nitty-gritty, and I'm sure that that our last speaker, I'm very sorry, will be particularly scrutinising Part D of the asset management plans, which is drainage, which has been also but not yet adopted. And I have come to realise over my 12, 13 years as a councillor that it's all about the drainage. It really is, and it's the most complicated one to do. However, I did realise when we were adopting the pathways one, I was quite shocked to find out that in fact it's the pathways that are going to present us with a much bigger challenge than our bridges in the long term. We always thought that bridges were going to be the difficult one to ever play catch up with, but evidently we're doing all right in that regard, more or less. But pathways showing the wait, probably in some trepidation to see what the drainage asset management plan comes out to to tell us about. But anyway, these are the overarching documents that I recommend to the fellow councillors.
Councillor Gardner, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I think councillor Anderson has summed it up beautifully.
Would any other councillors like to speak? All right, we'll put it to the vote. All in favour? Carried. All right, on to 9.2.2, Community Asset Committee Compliance Report 2022. Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The purpose of this paper is to submit to Council an annual report regarding the activities and performance of Council's community asset committees. Under Section 47 of the Local Government Act, the Chief Executive Officer must submit a report in relation to the activities and performance of community asset committees to Council. This occurs annually and is to be completed once community asset committees have had sufficient time to submit their required information for the previous year. I'd also like to move that the Council notes the activity and performance of Council's community asset committees for the 2020-2021 financial year.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cordy. Any opposition? Councillor Driscoll, will you speak to your motion, please?
Yes, thanks, Deputy Mayor. Council has 20 community asset committees that manage community assets on behalf of Council. And every year, community asset committees are required to complete that annual return. These committees, and I know 5 of them in my area, do a wonderful job, in my opinion, and we really thank you all for your voluntary work that you do. So I'd just like to say that, that's all I have to say.
Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Anir. I just note that over the years we see some fantastic work on these committees, and we really value the work that the community puts in on a voluntary basis. I guess when you've read the detail of the report, you can see there's a huge amount of fundraising done by these committees, and there's quite a lot of funds involved. But we really value the work of the committees. I guess one of the things that interests me is over the years you do see some committees regularly performing better than others, and then some drop away and some improve in terms of their compliance, but there's very strict compliance matters that have to be met. And yeah, I'm sure our governance people will follow up with the ones that are listed in the report that haven't got all their paperwork lined up. But great work anyway to our committees. Thank you.
Would any other councillor like to speak? We'll put it to a vote. All in favour? Carried. And I'd just like to echo Councillor Cordy and say thank you to all the members of our community asset committees. They are volunteers, and it can be very hard and thankless work sometimes, so we really appreciate it. On to 9.3 economy. Item 9.3.1, PA 336/2021, 16 Steele Street, Chewton. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So this application for us was lodged on 2nd December. It proposes a 2-lot subdivision. The allotments will take form through a Battle Act subdivision. Lot 1 will be the street frontage allotment and contain an existing brick dwelling. Lot 1 will be 459 square metres and Lot 2 will be 371 square metres. Application also proposes common property of 180 metres for the access way to the rear allotment. It is located in the township zone of bushfire management overlay. Excuse me. I'd like to do a negative rank just so people don't think I'm infectious. The application has been advertised and one objection has been received. Issues raised in the objections include overdevelopment and neighbourhood character. The proposed subdivision taking through a Battle Act design is considered to not achieve an acceptable outcome when assessed against relevant policy context. the development of an additional dwelling allotment is considered not to be able to achieve an acceptable outcome when assessed under clause 54 or clause 55 of Mount Alexander Shire planning scheme, where any future dwelling will negatively impact on the existing dwelling. The allotment does not meet the relevant policy when regarding subdivision design and neighbourhood character. Further, the subdivision may exacerbate existing traffic issues, even though the current construction standards of Steel Street, particularly the intersection of Steel Street and Main Road. So I would also recommend the county officer's recommendation, which is a notice of decision to refuse a planning permit.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Henderson, is there any opposition? All right. Councillor Gardner, would you like to speak to your motion?
Certainly. I think generally in the what I've read out covers it all. For me, I think the issues is the size of the lots. They're a lot smaller than any others in the neighbourhood. And one of them you have to entrance via battle axe. So these lots will be out of character with the main surrounding houses. This area particularly, probably for more of a historical area, used to be sort of a little farm area. And it has now become quite developed, and adding in small land sizes like these will obviously continue that overdevelopment in this area, and maybe exacerbate and see a lot more. At the moment, there are certainly problems and pressures, particularly around the entrance into Steel and Main Road due to this development, and it's certainly the current road in is not applicable, and the referral agencies, if you know, that was certainly they were considered with lots of conditions. So for me, based upon those issues, I would support the officer's recommendation to not give a planning permit.
Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak now?
No, well, thank you.
Councillor Driscoll, would you like to speak?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Look, we have a major housing issue here in the Shire, and the only way to, and there's not one answer for that issue, but one of the answers is to be proactive on developing appropriate sites. I feel this is an appropriate site. I know that the next item that's coming up, Van Hegel Street, is approved, and they're larger lots. They're smaller lots than this one. So, I think we're not really trying to achieve an outcome of getting this affordable housing issue under control unless we be a little bit more proactive. There's only been one objector on this applicant. We seem to have faulted, in my opinion. But I'd like to also foreshadow a motion that if this doesn't get up, I'd like to defer this application until I get a bit more information on it, so I can have a alternative motion to approve the application. Thank you.
Councillor McClure, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Can you hear me okay, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Look, I support the comments that Councillor Driscoll just made. Here we are in a era now where we have to, council has to start changing its attitude, I think, to these smaller developments, not only for affordable housing. It's becoming greater, more difficult by the minute to do any housing development, whether it's these sort of infill developments or anywhere else. And I think this council has to look at its policy around neighbourhood character and intensity of developments, and particularly where it should be done in the Shire. I mean, I think Chewton is certainly a suitable area, as is Campbell's Creek, and as are the main township area of Castlemaine. So I do believe, we're this council is going to create a rod for our own back by refusing these smaller Battle Act blocks, because this is going to be the future of affordable housing in this town and probably across the state. So I think all the issues that have been raised in relation to traffic and so forth can be resolved. It's a pity that that wasn't done when the 6-lot subdivision was approved by council some years ago. That's when the road should have been improved, not now when 1 lot is being proposed. So, but anyway, I think those issues can be resolved, and that's why I support Matt's position on this for not supporting this motion. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak on the matter? All right, then we'll put it to, oh, sorry, right in front.
I would like to speak, Deputy Mayor, thank you. Steel Street should really be called Steel Court. It's not a through road, it's got one road in and out, a narrow road, which is barely wide enough for 2 ordinary cars who are driving very carefully. It's missing, I acknowledge, full, yes, acknowledgement, it's missing an auxiliary left turn off the Pyrenees Highway and a full right-hand turn lane, what it should have. What should have been put in retrospect, acknowledging that over the 6-lot subdivisions. There's no more opportunities for large subdivisions. If this one goes ahead, it will be the first cab off the rank for everyone else in that street to look at their 1,000 metres, see what is it, 600 square metres to 4,300 square metre blocks to start subdividing. But no one else has got the remnants of the old farm, so there will be 1 and 2 lot subdivisions. It's a unique place in many ways. It's got dog land on 2 sides, it's got Parks Victoria over the road, it's surrounded by bushland, the railways at the back, and it's a bushfire danger area, which is why the main document supplied by the objectors, the applicant, is their bushfire management assessment. And it's not a place for intensifying development, absolutely not. The whole reason the Tooten is taken out of an area which should intensify development is because it's a very high risk bushfire area, the whole side is. And that's why it sits there as a place where we should not intensify development. I would say Steel Street is the last place where we should allow small blocks and increasing the numbers of people beyond what's already there. 1 small block, I mean, what guarantee it's going to be a cheap block? What's guarantee it's going to have a house on that's going to be available for the public? It's probably be in another Airbnb. We have no control over that. And I urge my fellow councillors not to approve this. It's not appropriate. I cannot say it's not, and I fully support the recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Gardner, your right of reply.
Thank you. There's probably a couple of things I just want to mention. I think Christine talked about the bushfire issue, which is important, particularly in that area. Obviously, more people, bushfire, not good. But I do want to talk, the housing affordability issue was raised, and obviously that is a big concern that I know we as a council have. However, there's nothing in it that would lead me to believe that the developer, out of the goodness of their heart, is going to make this cheaper. It obviously it doesn't meet any sort of criteria or definition of social housing. So whilst I acknowledge personally we need to have a look at and think of where different types of development should occur, we need to do it in a planned way, and it needs to be in areas where probably more urbanised areas, I would suggest, where you would do it, and not a free-for-all, and everyone uses housing affordability as an excuse to get through smaller lots, which probably will be sold at not much of a discount because people get desperate and they just buy what's available. So that's why I would suggest that using those issues for an alternative recommendation, or I wouldn't support it anyway.
All right, councillors, we'll put it to a vote. All in favour? All opposed? Carried. On to 9.3.2, PA 307/2021, 17 Van Hoek Street, Castlemaine. Buildings and works for construction of 2 additional dwellings and subdivision of land into 3 lots. Councillor Cordy.
Thanks for that, Deputy Mayor. Council received an application for building works for the construction of 2 additional dwellings and subdivision of land into 3 lots at 17 Van Hoek Street, Castlemaine. The 2 proposed dwellings will be located to the east of the existing dwelling. The application is located within the general residential zone, Schedule 1. The application is referred to council as 5 objections have been received. The objections include concerns relating to reduced car parking, noise, double-storey development in a low-rise neighbourhood, and the lack of established garden area. The proposed development for the construction of 2 dwellings and a 3-lot subdivision is considered to achieve acceptable outcomes when assessed against the zoning and the relevant policy context, and any impacts to adjoining land can be managed in a manner that is acceptable to the objectives and outcomes of the relevant planning policy as demonstrated in the report. And I would move the recommendation as printed, which is a council issues a notice of decision to grant a planning permit.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gardner, any opposition? Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, well, I think this is an example where the planners have assessed that it is appropriate to have that infill development, and there's no, my understanding is that there's no problems with 2-storey development in this area. So, yeah, we've got a recommendation to approve, and, you know, it's going to, because of the subdivision, it will provide a couple of extra dwellings for the community. So, I think, given our planners have considered it, I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Councillor Gardner, would you like to speak now?
Yeah, I mean, there is a difference between this one and the previous one. I mean, this is in a general residential zone 1 with no overlays. And so that's a big difference. The fact that the reason for a planning permit is about car parking. It is in a neighbourhood that is developed and it meets street space. So that's why I would support this one.
Would any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, look, just to reiterate what Councillor Gardner said, this is a place where it is appropriate. It's open access. It's not a bushfire area. See, and also to note that where it's 2 stories, in fact, because of the cut of the land, the height of the 2-storey houses is planned to be the same as that of the existing house. So that's the means we're not going to have something rising up on the horizon above what's already there, which is
Would any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Driscoll.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I'd just like to note that this is 620 metres away from the previous application, and that these are smaller lots, so it fits into my idea of trying to help with the affordable housing. That's all. Thank you. So I approve it.
Councillor McClure, would you like to speak to the item?
No.
All right, Councillor Cordy, have a right to reply.
That's fine, thank you.
All right, we will put the item. All in favour? Carried. Moving on to 9.3.3, planning application PA 306/2021, 2355 Harmony Way, Elphinstone. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The purpose of this report is to enable council to make a determination on application for the use and development of the land for a service station, creation of 2 access points for Transport Zone 2 and removal of vegetation at 2355 Harmony Way, Elphinstone. The application has been referred to council for a decision because 6 objections have been received and the council officer recommendation is to refuse the application. The subject site is located within the farming zone and is affected by the environmental significance overlay Schedule 1 of the Mount Alexander Planning Scheme. The application was advertised and received 6 objections, with the grounds of objection relating to the environment's impact, amenity, traffic, safety concerns and net community benefit. It should be noted that an appeal for failure to determine has been lodged at VCAT for this application. Therefore, the council must form a position to present at VCAT in relation to this proposal. The application was assessed and considered to be contrary to the relevant sections of the planning policy framework and the farming zone in relation to the use, location, sitting and appearance. Council officers recommended that the council form a position to refuse this application. So I would like to move a motion that as per printed, so it's a notice of refusal, which goes to VCAT, and add in under an additional point. The proposed road design would adversely affect the safety and efficient operation of the Pyrenees Highway at the intersection of Harmony Way. Specifically, the proposal is contrary to clause 1801-IS land use transport planning and clause 1802-3S road system, as the road and access does not create a safe, efficient environment for a net community benefit and would not minimise adverse impacts on the amenity of the surrounding area.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Anderson, any opposition? All right, Councillor Gardner, would you like to speak to your motion?
Certainly will. So what we have here before us is a service station, which is just off Calder Highway in a farm zone. It is surrounded by housing. Now, in this, it obviously quite specifically states that there are a number of frameworks it is against, and I'm not going to get into that. I'm sure my fellow councillors will talk about that. To me, though, what really turned me against this was the conduct of the applicant and his agents. So, with all the objectors who put in what I would consider to be reasonable issues, such as light spillage, traffic, hours of operation, and such, his response was, I'll give you 10 grand if you withdraw or you get nothing. Now, councillors, I don't know how you feel about that, but personally, if you are a person who wants to come and do business in this town, and your attitude is to our residents, if you take this money or you get nothing, and in fact, I think you even clearly stated that the hours of operations on the table would be 10 till 6. If you don't accept it, it's 24/7. I can't personally support an application with people who do not even consider sitting down working with applicants on their issues. So that's why I'm against it.
Councillor Anderson, would you like to speak now?
I think I'll wait to hear what my other councillors have to say. Thank you.
Councillor Cordy.
Thanks for that, Deputy Mayor. A couple of points in relation to the proposal. I'd just like to note that the proposal does include for 3 charging stations for electric vehicles, and really it sort of demonstrates to me that you know, it's the applicant has certainly done their homework, and I don't know if there's a lot of charging stations along the freeway, so that's probably a good thing, and it's, you know, electric vehicles definitely the future. the enterprise, if it went ahead, would probably create 4 or 5 additional jobs, and that's something to consider for a community like ours. In terms of the planner's report, yes, it's farming zone, but this particular site has no value as farming property. So I think the planning scheme doesn't always get it right, but this particular property has no farming value. I think in terms of there's a lot of people live in proximity to this location that would benefit from fuel availability, and certainly that would include farmers farming in the general area. And in terms of fuel prices, we need competition to put pressure on fuel prices. A lack of competition has our residents paying over the odds in our shire for fuel, and it's been going on for 50 years. Ever since we went from gallons to litres, these people in our community have been paying over the odds. Like when I was a kid growing up, petrol was $2 a gallon or 5 cents a litre, and 4.5 cents a litre. And we need that competition, and fuel price is a major contributor to the cost of living. And like every time we fill up our cars locally with fuel, we're getting ripped off $5 or $10, and that's a significant whack out of a family's budget. So I think there's merit in it. The site is not a particularly attractive site, and the other thing is, I think I know there's some concerns about traffic management, but I'm sure good design could overcome that. But when I was making all of those points, I have some real concerns and reservations about the behaviour of the applicant, and that does concern me. So I just note that. Thank you.
Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I don't support this permit, but this recommendation, because I think it's a good place for a good site for a petrol station, and I'd like to support new business there. When I'm in Melbourne, if I've got 150 kilometres left with my petrol tank, I normally have to fill up in Melbourne. But if that was there, because that's the way I go home, I could travel up the road and fill up there and have a full tank. And I think it also increase competition within the petrol stations around us. The farming zone, yes, it is farming zone, but if anyone passes that and knows that area, it's not that flash, in my opinion. And I thought as a council I was making that determination on the suitability of the permit, not necessarily the nature of the applicant. So I just like to point that out. Thank you.
Councillor McClure, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you, Acting Deputy Mayor. Or Deputy Mayor. I'd just like to endorse those comments made both by Councillor Cording and Councillor Driscoll in not supporting the recommendation that's been proposed. I do support this in principle. I think it is a good position for a service station. Most of the objections that I've noted or I've seen, I believe have been addressed for the most part. I don't think that the houses around the proposed property are well set back away from the road. They're well away from the service station. All the lighting and so forth from the service station can be baffled. I don't think there are going to be any greater traffic issues around that area than what there is now. In regards to traffic, I think there was no objection from our own engineering unit at the council. There's been no objections provided by Vic Roads, who I assume still service Harmony Way and look after the Calder Freeway. I'm not quite sure about that, but that organisation had no issues with this proposal. They provided an extensive traffic management report which addresses, I believe, all the issues. It may be a busy intersection. There may have been issues there in the past, but I certainly think with this building there that if there are issues at this corner, that they can be adequately addressed through proper engineering, proper traffic engineering to fix any of those problems. I support Matt in what I said. I don't think we should be judging a planning application on the style of the applicant. That's got absolutely nothing to do with the application. We should be judging it on its merit. So it doesn't worry me. It does concern me, but it's not something that I'm taking into consideration in regards to not supporting this proposed recommendation. I think it's a good site for a service station, and I think the people in Elphinstone and in Castlemaine will be well serviced by this garage. It's interesting to note Councillor Cordy saying that there's going to be some electric charging stations put at this station. My daughter borrowed my wife's car a couple of weeks ago, and it came back from Melbourne on the back of a tilt tray because late at night she couldn't find a charging station and it ran out of charge. So I think we do need more charging stations around the country to help people to find proper charging stations. So I do support this matter. I would support this matter, or this service station being built at this location. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McClure. Over to you, Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Very interesting, this one. It is noted, I noticed all, and I'm pleased to hear you say, Councillor Driscoll, you would be one of the typical customers that this station is being aimed at, and the applicant attended the objection which had told us that it's not primarily aimed at freeway travellers, but Pyrenees highway travellers. Yeah? We saw traffic, presumably a lot of them go to the freeway, but they go to the freeway, from the freeway, commuting to Castlemaine to the west. And 80% of them are actually going to be travelling west. Now that's fine. And I look, if it wasn't for the intersection that it sits on, if it was actually just a block closer to the freeway, if it was actually sitting there at the freeway intersection, perfect. But it's not. It's got this very awkward intersection, which on one side is called Colorado Highway, on the other side, because council now owns that, it's called Harmony Way. So let's just call it the old Colorado Highway. Crosses the Pyrenees. It's been offset because, of course, originally it wasn't, and there were some pretty nasty collisions there with cars going straight across, impacted with cars coming straight down. So pretty quickly, the road was redesigned, so it's now offset with, so you have to actually do a bit of a dog leg to go across. And therein lies the problem. The traffic, I think I was told was there was 1,000 cars a day travelling that road. Not that many really in the grand scheme of things, but significant. A significant fraction of those stood there at the intersection, wondering whether the car sitting at the other side of the intersection is coming straight across, i.e. are they going to do the dog leg like they are, or are they turning right to go into the Pyrenees Highway? It's not easy because sometimes people put their indicator on when they mean they're actually going to do the dog leg, and likewise the other way. So it's a tricky intersection. There is often glass lying on the road there. I drive it every day. I know that well. Glass, it hasn't been a major nasty accident. Probably wasn't been reported to the police, but there's been a smash, a bingo, I think they call them, where people go, oops, no, it wasn't. Oh dear, there we go. There goes another headline or side panel. So those near misses and collisions happen there on a regular basis at that intersection. Also, probably much more scary, is traffic heading for the freeway, unfamiliar with the road, see the big freeway sign as they're coming down the long straight towards the freeway, and then they see the green sign to Taradale, but they think that's the freeway. So they pull into the right-hand lane to turn right, and then as they get closer, they realise they've made a mistake. So panicking, they veer back into the left, not always noticing that there's cars travelling 100 kilometres an hour in the left lane that they just left. That's really nasty. Now that situation happens exactly outside where this place is proposed, left in, left out. left in, left out. So let's think about that happening while these cars are going, oh, I've gone the wrong way, or oh, when I go across, I'm turning right. Then, of course, most of the traffic on the Pyrenees, and the applicant could say 80% would be travelling west. In order to access the site, must turn, because they're only left in, left out, has to turn right into Huntley Way, then left into the service station, charge their electric car, then come back out, another right turn, and then do another right turn onto the Pyrenees Highway. So all that's happening, on trucks as well, of course, all that's happening while these scenarios are going on with the traffic that aren't actually using the service station. This is not a good place to have a service station. Down the road, 5 kilometres away, is a Taradale service station, which, surprise, Councillor Cordy, has the cheapest petrol in the whole district. I hate to say, but several people I know travel weekly from Castlemaine to Taradale, specifically to fill up their tanks, because it is the cheapest place. There will be getting charging stations soon, but more importantly, being proposed and soon to be built once it's gone through VCAT, large petrol station at the Heathcote exit on the Kyneton bypass, some 12 kilometres away, will have multiple charging stations, no doubt about it, as well as lots of nice fast food. So, and then of course further to the north, about 20 kilometres to the north is Ravenswood. I don't know if they've got charging stations yet, but they're pretty well soon will go. We're not badly supplied for those things. For cheap petrol or charging stations, pretty good. I'm very sorry to hear about your daughter's car or your wife's car, Councillor Clark. Won't be much longer before in plenty of places. So I guess I just want to say that I really don't think this is a good place because of the traffic conditions primarily. I'll ignore the behaviour of the applicant in this one. Though it has been very distressing that I would have to say. That's my thank you.
Councillor Gardner, you're right of reply.
Thanks. A couple of things probably. With electric vehicles, I don't own one until they're actually reliable and you can actually do more than a couple 100 kilometres personally. I wouldn't support it myself. And that's the risk you take with these sorts of things. The whole premise of this application is that, and includes traffic management, 80% of customers will come from Castlemaine and Strand. That is nonsense because there is currently no electrical charging stations along the corridor. So the market obviously is everyone on the corridor calling out to get it. And there's no doubt that's what it's about. The other questions made about competition. I've never seen people raising, oh, we get a petrol station and it's competition. You have heard of cartels and stuff that all companies do and they collude and they look at the prices and they put the same. Just because you get an extra petrol station doesn't mean it's cheaper. In fact, I think you have to drive in Bendigo where you got one that is cheaper and everyone else is the same price. And we all know what that is. So having competition isn't going to mean you get cheaper fuel. If we had less taxes, maybe we get less fuel. If we didn't have a war, less as well. So there's many reasons, but petrol ain't going to come down because it's a competitor. I did want to talk about the, I think 2 councillors mentioned that the conduct of the applicant is irrelevant. Well, no, it's not. The whole great premises and basis on planning applications is someone submits an application, people object, and there's a discussion on how you can accommodate all parties. That's the framework. So the issues around lights, battlements, sounds, trading hours, the applicant has made absolutely zero ways to abate any of those, other than he offered them 10 grand, take it or leave it. So that is off the table. So there'd be no addressing lights and spills and those sorts of things, because they didn't take the deal. So it is relevant. So it's not just the conduct, it's the conduct plus the blackmail plus all these issues are not resolved. So that's why I can't support it.
All right, we will put it to a vote. All in favour? And all opposed? As the vote is tied, I will use my casting vote as Deputy Mayor to vote in favour of Councillor Henderson's motion.
Deputy Mayor, can I call for a division, please?
Councillor Driscoll has called for a division. All in favour? Councillor Henderson, Councillor Gardner and Councillor Renier. All opposed? Councillor Driscoll, Councillor McClure, Councillor Cordy, with Councillor Renier's casting vote as a 4. And the item is carried. Moving on to 9.3.4, consideration of submissions, planning scheme amendment C97. Councillor Driscoll. Oh, sorry, Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Consideration of submissions for planning scheme amendment 97, C97. The purpose of this paper is to enable the council to consider all submissions made during the exhibition of planning scheme amendment C97 and consider the options available to council to address them. The amendment is a council proposed amendment seeking to correct errors and anomalies within the Mount Alexander planning scheme, which are associated with both the mapping, zoning and overlays, and ordinance of the planning scheme. As such, it is intended to be a policy-neutral planning scheme amendment. The majority of the errors and anomalies proposed to be corrected are associated with heritage overlay. The amendment also proposes administrative changes to tidy up the zoning and overlay controls along the Cardiff Freeway, which should be declared a freeway under the North Management Act 2004 to include that these are accurate and reflective of the current land use, road management conditions. Submissions are considered unresolved and are recommended to be referred to an independent.
Do I have a motion?
You do, finally met. Yes, I think it's printed.
And the seconder? Councillor Cordy, any opposition? Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to your motion?
We always thank people for taking the time to scrutinise and put in their submissions on various things. There's lots of minor items here. I thought about it later. I might have wanted to recommend some rezoning of land along the Cardiff Freeway to industrial. Maybe we missed the boat there. Councillor McClure. However, that's probably inappropriate this time. See, I was looking at physically what she's looking for. But anyway, so we have these missions, and so the process now is that we look and see if we can resolve them, and if not, we will be planning.
Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to the motion? Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Henderson, you have a right of reply. No, that's all right. We will put it to a vote. All in favour? Carried. Item 9.3.5, extension to COVID-19 financial hardship policy. Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Renier. At its ordinary meeting of Council on the 16th of June 2020 in response to the state of emergency declared in Victoria on the 16th of March 2020, Council adopted a COVID-19 financial hardship policy with a review date of mid-January 2021. Council subsequently adopted the policy at its meeting of Council on the 16th of February 2021 with a review date of the 15th of July 2021. At this time, Council again readopted the policy with a review date of 30th of June 2022. Given the events of the past 2 years, particularly in the context of economic disruption in the state of Victoria, during several lockdowns of the state and borders, our communities and businesses are still vulnerable and not as robust as they once were. As a result, adoption of the COVID-19 financial hardship policy for a further period is proposed. I would also like to move that Council adopts the COVID-19 financial hardship policy until the 30th of June 2023.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Henderson, any opposition? Councillor Driscoll, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you. Businesses have been currently still are experiencing a certain environment, and we need to adapt as we can. I'm involved with several businesses, and each of those businesses are struggling to find where the sales haven't recovered yet. So I think this small thing that we're doing here is supporting our small businesses in town. And any person who is a business person can attest to the fact that, you know, it's a struggle at the moment, even though COVID, the lockdowns are finished, it's still very much within our community and businesses are suffering. Thank you.
Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak now?
No, I think it's fine. I think it's appropriate. It's not on my budget item, but I think it makes a difference to businesses that are still finding it.
Councillor Gardner, would you like to speak?
I'm sort of not against it, but I am in some ways. I do believe, and I don't know if my fellow councillors would think about it, so this is actually extending it for a full year. My preference would be to review it in December. Now, the reason for that is that the show orders are about to expire, which is i.e. The pandemic's over. It's called an endemic. So we would be out of line with everyone else. In terms of businesses struggling, the impact on their staying is probably less to do with COVID and more to do with staff. Now, some of that can be because staff have got COVID and they're sick, but it's not necessarily about COVID. Now, I can talk on behalf of Maldon, and I can say in Maldon, since things are back, many businesses are doing better than they ever have before. And I could probably offer some reasons why Castlemaine isn't in that boat. Maybe they could open on a Sunday and Saturday afternoons, all these sorts of things. So I suppose my question is, would we fellow councillors be considering of just extending this for 6 months? I have done an alternative motion.
Mover and seconder, do you accept Councillor Gardner's amendment to your motion?
No.
All right. Do you wish to make a formal amendment to the motion?
Yeah, I'd like to. As printed, but it actually expires at the end of December and we then review it.
So I have a seconder. Can't get up without a seconder.
No,
You seconded the
do
other one?
that.
No. Is there any seconder? Gary? Councillor McClure, are you seconding?
Yes.
All right.
Do you know what seconding, Gary?
I am seconding the motion, yes.
Right.
Sorry.
That's the amendment. You're talking about the amendment.
Yes.
Yes, I'm seconding Stephen's
All
amendment.
right. We now debate the amendment, starting with the mover of the amendment, Councillor Gardner.
Okay, thank you. I suppose I've already outlined my main reasons. One, the actual show orders of thing are about to expire, I understand. So we would be well out of whack of what is the current Victorian government policy in this. And I think, as I mentioned, it's no longer going to be to a pandemic. So we're out of whack. In terms of the cost of council, it is actually quite minimal, really. And people can still apply for financial hardship if they demonstrate it under normal circumstances and receive consideration. So for me, it's just about bringing it probably back 6 months to review at that point in time what the situation is, because things could be really good or things could be worse. We actually don't know what will be happening in past December. So therefore, for me, having a policy for a full year, I just feel it'd be better to revisit it again, see where we're at.
Councillor McClure, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Only to add that I support it because I think I would concur with Councillor Gardner's view that that businesses are doing a lot better than what they were, certainly in the depths of COVID. We've been out of it. I think in respect to businesses getting going again, my observation would be that there are businesses are operating a lot more successfully these days. So on those grounds, I do support Stephen's motion to only extend it for 6 months. Thanks, Deputy Mayor.
Can I ask a clarifying question tonight, please? Can you clarify for me whether the policy relates to businesses or just residential households? Sorry, the existing policy.
Thank you, Deputy. I might just shout for a
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor. On page 2 of the policy under scope, the very last paragraph includes what a scope is, so it's not just businesses. So it actually notes there that it looks at property rates and charges, as well as non-property rates and charges that may therefore include relief measures for certain businesses, individuals or organisations. So it is not just applicable for businesses.
And the existing hardship policy not related to COVID, does that also apply to businesses, not just residential?
Correct.
Yeah. So both policies cater to all ratepayers.
Correct.
All right. Would any other councillor like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Nier. Councillor Gardner works in this area, I understand, and I appreciate your thoughts. So I'm happy to accept the 6 month review as he's suggesting, and then look at that in the 6 months' time and see how it goes. Because in my opinion, you know, what we're trying to do is support people, but we could look at that in 6 months' time and make make a different decision or extend it by another 6 months if we think. I don't think that's an issue, so I'm happy to support that.
Sorry, would any other councillor like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Henderson.
I'm a bit confused. So we're actually debating the amendment.
At present we are.
Has it become a substantive motion?
Not yet, we have to put it to a vote.
Yeah, okay. And then we have to discuss, we have to debate it again.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, I'll support that. Yeah.
All right. There is no right of reply needed, so we'll put the amendment to a vote. All in favour of the amendment? All opposed? The amendment is carried and becomes the substantive motion. And we pop back in where we were. Where do we start again? Councillor Driscoll, you have the motion. Would you like to speak to it? It has been amended, but it is still yours.
So
Of my original motion.
With the amendment in it.
Sorry.
It has an amendment in it now.
Sorry.
Yes.
No.
Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to them?
Oh, yeah, so we're actually, so the motion is now that council adopts the COVID-19 financial hardship policy until the 31st of December.
That is correct.
Yeah, in 2022. Well, based on intel from our man in the know, we're now in an endemic situation instead of a pandemic. I don't know which scares me more. Except I was told that 1 in 10 people with cancer have COVID at the moment. I hope it's not me by the time I get home. So, yes, we're not exactly giving away much, but I can see that the situation can change quite rapidly, hopefully for the better. So a 6 months review in this case, even though it means more work for our officers, I think is appropriate. Yeah, I support that, which means it would come to us in the December meeting. Maybe? Wrong.
Director Knight?
Happy to respond to that. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Henderson. If it does come to the December meeting, there will not be 6 months worth of data that we could provide. It would be around the 4 to 5 month amount of data that we could provide as to people that have applied for hardship and any conditions under the new policy. So it will be just shy of 6 months,
Yeah.
given the nature of papers and how they're reviewed.
Thank you, Director Knight. Would any other councillor like to speak to this? Councillor Cordy?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. And yeah, I'd just like to note that council normally has a financial hardship policy in place, and there's a special set of conditions developed in relation to COVID. You know, we want to leave COVID behind, but unfortunately we're still having to very much to live with it. And I guess the timing is a concern to me in terms of the 6 months takes us up to the end of the year, or council actually goes on break for a couple of months then. So that's a bit of a problem for me. But I support bringing the COVID hardship policy to a close, noting that we do normally have hardship policies in place, so it's not really a major issue. Thank you.
Would any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Driscoll, you have a right of reply.
No, fine, thank you.
All right, we will put this motion to the vote. All in favour? All opposed? Motion is carried. I think I've got my list. Thanks. All right, on to 9.3.6, Finance Report 2021-2022, Quarter 3. Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor here. The purpose of this report is to present the finance report 2021-2022. Finance report for the quarter ended 31st of March 2022. This report will be presented to the Audit Risk Committee at their May meeting. This is another Local Government Act 2020, which we must do. I also like to move that Council notes the finance report for the 9-month period to 31st of March 2022.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cordy. Any opposition? Councillor Driscoll, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Regular review of finance performance and reporting of council activities provides an overview as to how different programs and projects are being delivered. This reporting assists in monitoring council's achievements and objectives in the strategic resource plan, finance plan and the annual budget, whilst ensuring the council is financially sustainable in the long term.
Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I'd just like to acknowledge the fine work from Director Knight and the team, the finance team in preparation of the report. Council is in sound financial shape, but the reports are always excellent quality, and really appreciate the work. So thank you.
Would any other councillor like to speak to this?
I just want to comment that with COVID, council's in a very good position financially, and I think that's a good position to be. I'm not sure what other councils are when they're at all this sort of stuff, but yeah, well done to the team, and I think in a good financial position to cope with the stuff that comes along in the year, which is good.
Would any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Driscoll, you have a right of reply.
Fine, thank you.
All right, we will put the item to the vote. All in favour? All against? Nobody. Motion carried. Into item 10, delegates reports. Does anyone have a delegate report?
Can I just briefly say that I went to the launch of the LGBTQ plus podcast, which has been put together by a team of people associated with the steering group, the Rainbow Steering Group. I won't try and say all those names at this stage of the evening again, and also supported very ably by our officer in Mount Alexander Shannon, Access and Inclusion Officer. It was a very moving occasion, very inspiring, and it taught me a lot. And the podcast is something I recommend to all my fellow councillors. It's available on Spotify. I haven't got the QR code here, but I'm sure you can all pick it up. It's a great thing. And on Thursday night, there is a information session for parents and interested people on gender and sexuality, run by the same group. I'll note a panel of experts speaking and also being held in our library from, I think it's 4:30 to 6:30, it might be 5:30 to 7:30. 5:30, thank you. And that's also could be very informative. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Does anyone else have a delegates report? Councillor Cordy.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Anir. I'd just like to note that over the last few weeks, I've been fortunate to travel around the state a little bit. And one of the things I've noticed is that in a number of shires that I've visited, there seems to be extensive bike trails and getting a lot of use across the state of bike trails. But what sort of stood out when I've travelled around and I've looked at these trails is that in the main, the trails that I've seen have been sealed, and obviously a lot of money coming from somewhere to the sealing of bike trails, and certainly we have some good trails, but correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is ours are unsealed. The other point I would just make is that on the weekend we travelled to Gippsland, and I couldn't help but notice the stark difference between we're a lot closer to Melbourne and than Gippsland is, or Lakes Entrance, Bairnsdale, those sort of areas, and the tourism industry in Gippsland is totally flat. Everything's empty. There's very few tourists down there. So I just feel that our discussions around COVID, I feel that because of our proximity to Melbourne, we're actually getting a better kickstart than some communities. So I thought should go out to the Gippsland community because they're a long way from anywhere, and it was fabulous weather and great places we were able to see, but very, very quiet. And the place that we stayed at, there were 6 or 8 units, there was only one occupied, and that's really tough for business. So I think we're very fortunate where we live. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Anir. I just wanted to mention that this Sunday, the Castlemaine Maryborough Rail Trail, the captain and the delegation who spoke with us, is having their walk between Guildford and Strangeway, which is 9 kilometres. Strangeway, 9 kilometres, which starts at 9:15, and they're anticipating 80 to 100 people. So if anyone feels like a bit of a walk, starting to Guildford on the rail trail, so it's pretty interesting. So we'll see how we go.
So is that a democracy walk?
No, it's just a rail trail walk to
Saturday or Sunday?
Sunday.
Councillor Gardner.
I did actually have 2 I wanted to raise actually. So one, it's always a pleasure. I get to lead the Malvern Anzac Day parade down Main Street. So again this year, that's really good. But the other one I also attend every year is at Nuggety, which, I don't know, fellow councillors might need to think if you've done for an Anzac Day in the afternoon after all the other ceremonies. It's a quiet little place and everyone cooks great sandwiches and food and there's always heaps. So there you go.
Nice one.
Recommend it.
Councillor McLuhan, do you have anything to report on?
It's failing.
Do I go next? All right, I'm going to go next. I've been filling in for the mayor a bit while he's been unwell, and we're obviously all wishing him a speedy recovery. I've been trying to fill his shoes while he's gone, which has actually been tricky because then I got COVID, and so I haven't been doing much mayoring the last 2 weeks. But before that, I did get to attend some things, which was lovely. The first of which was an announcement of funding from the state government by Murray Edwards for the regional community vet clinic. And that was really exciting. So this is out near Campbell's Creek Community Centre. So it was funding to start this vet clinic, which will be basically an initiative for essential vet services for people who can't normally afford it. So, lots of people in our shire have pets that they love very much, but for whatever reason, they struggle to keep up with vaccinations and other such, things that you should do for your pets. So this will be a really accessible bonus for the town. So that was really exciting. Got to meet some nice dogs and some nice children as well. That was excellent. Also, later that day, maybe the next day, I got to go and speak at the launch of Castlemaine Pride, which was a very special experience. I got to meet lots and lots of lovely people and check out the art, which is on display at the market building. The next day, I also attended the Castlemaine Pride picnic in the park, which for weather reasons was actually a picnic in the town hall. And I was not confident that it would translate that well from an outdoor venue into the town hall, but they did an excellent job. I've never seen the town hall looking as bright and full of life. Lots of families there. There was entertainment all day. The choir was particularly lovely. It was pretty special. I've been listening to the podcast that Councillor Henderson talked about, which was launched on that Thursday. It's on Spotify. I've been listening to one a night while I do my knitting, and it's I think of myself as someone who knows an amount about the queer community, but I've learned so much from that podcast. It is very, very moving and powerful stuff. I do recommend that everyone give it a listen sometime. The other thing that I unfortunately missed out on that I was really looking forward to attend was the first game at the Camp Reserve between the Falcons and the Castlemaine Football Club's women's team, which was on Saturday just gone. The two new Castlemaine teams facing off together, even though the Falcons aren't yet a registered team, they're just playing practice matches. It sounded fantastic, and like both teams had a really great goal of it. So that was quite exciting to hear. And that's it from me. Over to you, CEO.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And can I add our best wishes to Mayor Maltby as well, for a speedy recovery for him on behalf of the organisation. As always, you councillors have our list of activities over the past month, and unfairly there's more in my area than his, of course, because he hasn't been around very much at all the last month. So, but did also, I believe, get to attend the Anzac Day event in Castlemaine, which he's very passionate about. So, speedy recovery to him. Just picking out, as you'll see, similar to the previous month, there's a lot of activity to do with trying to progress housing affordability, and lots of passion amongst you get tonight, as always, about trying to make that happen in our shire. There's lots more work that we're doing on that on a very regular basis. Myself and many staff trying to do what we can to progress that in the shire with many departmental groups and community groups and not-for-profit groups, as well as for-profit businesses, trying to see what's possible. So that's going to continue. It's a very, and Councillor Driscoll made this observation, what we're getting for all of this work. It's going to take a lot of work to make progress on these things, and we're putting in the time and the effort to see what's possible. I guess time will tell. With that, a couple of others I'd pick out. It was great to get to attend, and Councillor Henderson and also Mary Tinkler, the Manager of Economy and Culture, were in attendance for the announcement at Castlemaine Art Museum for the $6.6 million that CAM attracted recently in the state government budget. So certainly a highlight, and congratulations to them on that huge achievement, which gets stage one of their works completed. Terrific. The other one I thought I'd just quickly mention was the meeting that Director Anir and I had with, it was actually the Department of Transport rather than Big Track, talking about the Harcourt Railway reopening opportunity, which as I know many of you are quite passionate about, has been talked about for several years now. We got a briefing on where the thinking was at from departmental perspectives on that project, and that will be coming to you soon to talk some more about where their thoughts are and where your thoughts will be as well on what's a good result for our community. But terrific to get a briefing on that it hasn't been forgotten, it is being thought about, and obviously there's some work for us to do to make sure that gets accelerated program commitments for the government, but it was great to see that there's work happening.
Thank you, CEO. If there are no further delegates' reports, we'll move on to item 11, notice of motion, which there are nil. Item 12, urgent special business, nil. Item 13, confidential items, nil, which brings us to item 14, and we will close the meeting.